Okay, I think we'll get started. Good afternoon, and welcome to this celebration of the extraordinary life of Jennifer Lynn Powley. My name is Stephen Kimber. I think my role here today is to make sure that Jen doesn't find it necessary to come back and tell me I'm doing it all wrong. That would not be the first time. I met Jen back in August of 2000 when she arrived from Alberta to begin the one-year Bachelor of Journalism degree program at the University of King's College. After she graduated, I was able to persuade her to stay on for a time as my secretary. There was always a question of who was the boss. Perhaps you can sense a pattern here. And in fact, I was delighted to see that the caption on one of the pictures of Jen as a very young girl was "Boss Lady." You can see it up there when you get a chance. The job at King's, of course, couldn't hold her. Not much could. Over the next 10 years, Jen went on to get a master's degree in urban planning and became an important and valued advocate for the Ecology Action Center. She quit that job in 2013 after she lost her ability to speak in public. I was mortified, she would write in her memoir, "I couldn't do my job." Her memoir? Rather than retreat, Jen returned to King's to join the inaugural Master of Fine Arts in Creative Nonfiction class and continued to advocate by telling her story, by writing the first of 3 books that she wrote, the award-winning Just Jen, Thriving Through Multiple Sclerosis. But there was nothing just about Jen. My last encounter with her came just a few weeks before she died. We were on a Zoom call as part of the National Council of the Writers' Union of Canada. Jen, who was the Atlantic representative, was pushing for the union to start a program to support and encourage writers with disabilities. Like Jen herself, that call to action will continue to reverberate in the Writers' Union. So we gathered today to mourn the too soon passing of Jen, of course, but also to celebrate her amazing life and to rededicate ourselves to making sure we live up to her ambitions for us. There'll be an opportunity at the end of the formal part of today's event for you to share your own memories of Jen. But to begin, I would ask Isaac Benito to lead us in prayer.
Hi, my name is Isaac Benito. I work with Jen I was one of her personal caretakers since April of last year. And I would just like to lead everybody in prayer to begin the ceremony. So if everybody would just bow their heads and close their eyes. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you that we're all able to gather here to remember the life of Jennifer Powley. We thank you for her hard work, Lord. We thank you for her dedication and her example, Lord, and her love that she showed to us, Lord. And we thank you for just her joy and how she delighted in the little things of life, God. We thank you how she brought so much joy and happiness to other people. And we pray that this time will be a time where everybody can contemplate the meaning of life, Lord, and our eternal destiny, Lord. We thank you for sending your Son, Jesus Christ, to this earth to die on the cross for our sins, Lord, and rise from the dead, who gave us a hope of eternal life, that this life is not all that there is, and that we do not need to fear death, but that death has been conquered because of your Son, Lord. We pray that Jen's life would be an example to many people, to work hard, to love the little things in life, to respect everybody, to fight for those who don't have a voice in society, Lord. And we just thank you for her life. We pray that you will please comfort her family, comfort everybody here who is grieving because of her passing, Lord. And I just thank you for her impact on me personally and helping me to see life in a different perspective, see life through a different lens, and appreciate life. When I first started to work with her, I just picked a job because I needed a job desperately. I didn't want to work at Walmart anymore. But because of the job that I was able to have with her, my whole perspective on life has changed. My whole perspective on respecting everybody, loving everybody has changed and grown. And I thank you for an opportunity for her to be in my life. And I just pray that everybody within the sound of my voice today would have the hope of eternal life through you, Jesus, and that they would be comforted and know that you are the way to heaven and that their sins can be forgiven through you. In Jesus' name I pray, amen. Amen.
Thank you, Isaac. The next item on our agenda today is called Act of Remembrance. In this act of remembrance, the assistants who worked with Jen recently will bring painted rocks to the table in front of the hall. The idea of an act of remembrance is to give a chance to Jen's current attendants who worked with her in the past year to pay tribute to Jen and keep her memory alive. The staff had a strong bond, and they had a lot of unforgettable memories with Jen. Jen wanted to paint rocks, but sadly that was one of the things the staff didn't get to do with her when she was alive. So the rocks represent the staff's perspective of Jen's character, and also they carry messages as a kind of tribute and farewell to Jen. Thank you all. I saw some tears, but I also saw some smiles at some memories, so that was very important. So now we'll have some music by Don Brownrigg.
Jen had become my main inspiration in writing songs. Whenever I finish a song, I would wonder if Jen would like it. I think I will always take that with me. I was going to perform quite a sad song, but I don't think I will do that. I think I'll choose a more optimistic route for Jen.
away yourself. Don't be afraid of the world. It ain't out there. It ain't out there. Sometimes the lights fire, but you don't need to own the world. It's right there. So sit right there. And step back into the sunset, relaxing so bright. It's a bumpy road you when you lose yourself down. Set out and eat away, halfway yourself. Don't be afraid of the world. It ain't out there. It ain't out there. It ain't out there. Love you, Jen.
Thank you. I will now call on Nicole Dodds to offer a eulogy.
Good afternoon. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Nicole Dodds, Jen's older sister. In some ways, Jen's life was literally an open book. She wrote about it formally, and in order to perform her daily activities, she needed the hands and eyes of others. Jen was a strong public speaker and had eloquent writing skills. I don't consider myself to have either, but a friend of Jen's on Facebook shared a memory shortly after her passing. Jen was encouraging her to overcome her shyness, saying, "Why don't you think people are interested in what you have to say?" Jen's voice is still encouraging others. I hope today to give a glimpse into her amazing life from my perspective. Jen was born in Vegreville, Alberta. Vegreville is a community of about 5,000 people with much Ukrainian heritage and farming history. Jen was proud of this heritage. As a child, she enjoyed Ukrainian dancing, and as an adult, she would host Ukrainian Christmas parties for her friends. Mom recalls one party where Jen was trying to be respectful of a vegan friend when preparing the meal. If anyone is wondering, sweet almond milk is not a good replacement for heavy cream in traditional Ukrainian dishes. Jen has always loved cats. As children, the names were quite predictable: Blackie, Snowball, Ginger. As an adult, Jen was painstakingly conscientious when naming her cat Tula. I think I received a dozen texts with possible names, meanings behind the names, middle names, before she was confident she had chosen the right one. Jen did love to consider all possibilities and was a thorough researcher. We adopted 2 kittens recently, and I so missed being able to hear her opinion and debate possible options. I'm sure she would have had some creative suggestions. Jen has always loved to read. As children, when I got into trouble, I would be grounded from seeing my friends or talking on the phone. Jen's punishment when grounded was having her books taken away. As a teenager, I thought this was ridiculous. I now realize that it was completely fair. My mom taught us about equity. Not everyone needs the same thing. Jen took this concept and amplified it. She fought for respect for all individuals. She valued diversity, and she was an advocate for autonomy of choice. As an adult, I admired Jen for her tenacity and determination. As a child, she was painfully stubborn and strong-willed. I recall more than once when she would hide underneath the bed when it was time for ballet class. She crawled so far back that my poor grandmother could not reach her. I also recall a time when I vacuumed up her hair because she wouldn't move from the spot on the floor I needed to clean, even though I asked very pleasantly many times. Jen was inquisitive and interested in learning more about the world and the people she met. She was unrelenting with her questions as a child, always wanting to know why. And not just why to a question with a straightforward answer, why to opinion questions also. Which one of these superpowers would you choose? Mom would select one and answer. Well, why not the other 2? Jen never stopped asking the hard questions. But she didn't ask just to She didn't ask just to stir the pot, well, not usually. She asked, why are we not considering the impact of our actions? Why not try this unconventional idea? And if not now, when? Jen didn't just present a problem. She was willing to put in the work to find a better alternative, and she motivated others to do the same. Jen was valedictorian of her high school class. It's probably not a surprise to you that she was an exceptional student and also a well-rounded individual interested in politics and in the community around her. I don't actually remember that much about her grad ceremony, but what I do distinctly remember is shopping for shoes to go with her dress. Jen was already having trouble with her balance, and so it was important to find a shoe that wasn't too high, but that still looked formal. And wearing running shoes with grad dresses was definitely not the trend back then. We finally found a pair with a low heel and were able to dye them red to match her dress. And thankfully, her escort Dale was a good friend and understood the importance of holding her securely when she walked. Jen also held her friends securely. She was loyal and sincere and encouraging. She not only respected people's differences, she embraced them. Jen wanted everyone to be the best version of themselves. Jen originally planned to pursue physiotherapy as a career, but soon realized that her body would not physically allow her to continue down that path. And so she pivoted. Her first degree is a Bachelor of Arts from the King's University in Edmonton. A small university, Jen had a big impact. She was instrumental in helping establish the Safe Space program. She received a leadership award for being editor of the school paper, and she was valedictorian of her class. But in typical Jen fashion, she also made change through the relationships that she built. A librarian at the university recently told me a story about her experience learning from Jen. The library had a manual single door, and when Jen wanted to come into the library, she had to knock for the staff to open it. She also needed help reaching the books on the shelves. When the library was renovated, the librarian insisted on a wider door that opened automatically, even though one with a button opener was less expensive. Jen's life is filled with stories like this. She sent ripples into the water that will continue on and on through others. Jen moved to Halifax after the completion of her first degree to pursue journalism. It was generally a tough time for Jen those first years in Halifax. She was lonely. She was unable to secure a job in her field because of increasing physical disability. She struggled with a failed relationship and an eating disorder. But in spite of the challenges, Jen had started to make a life for herself and saw so much potential in Halifax. She was passionate about accessible transportation, including taxis, spearheading and lobbying the city for that. Jen lived a life of service over self, and she was most energized when she was working on something to make society better. And she did just that, in big and small ways, whether it was by bringing cupcakes to meetings to connect people, supporting refugee families in practical ways, researching and writing R7 solutions for the HRM Alliance, or advocating for disability rights. Jen opened doors. But Jen wasn't all work and no play. She had an impish grin and a witty sense of humor. She enjoyed the arts, pursuing mouth painting, and even acting in a few theatrical productions with Tom. Tom and Jen had an incredibly special relationship, built on mutual adoration and respect. I am so grateful that she knew true unconditional love. Jen and I were a bit like oil and water when we were young. Now I see it a little bit like yin and yang. Sorry. We were very different in some ways, but our love of family, commitment to learning, and mutual respect created a strong bond as adults. For a few years, I don't think Jen and I could have lived further apart. She was in Halifax, and our young family was living in Melbourne, Australia. Jen could not travel to visit, but we both made it a priority to stay connected. The girls and I would send postcards and notes, and Jen would write back, asking the girls about their school and activities. These exchanges continued when we moved back to Canada. It was always special to receive mail from Jen, especially recently when writing became a slow and difficult process. Thank goodness we're both hoarders, having kept the cards, because I now have both sides of the conversation. Jen had a tremendous capacity to remember things. She took a genuine interest in the people in her life. One friend commented on Jen knowing her father's treatment schedule when he got sick, despite never meeting him. I find this incredibly interesting because as a child, Jen was not good at memorization. She was brilliant and a strong student, but needed to fully understand the concept rather than memorize. And I think this exemplifies how much she loved the people in her life. She wanted to truly understand them. Jen was thoughtful. When we would come to visit her, she always had plans for things to do that she thought my girls would like. We enjoyed a number of plays at Shakespeare by the Sea, laughed over meals at various local restaurants, explored the Discovery Center. Jen loved all her nieces and nephews and had already selected gifts for the 6 of them for Christmas. Jen and I once started an activity where we asked each other daily questions. We did it via email because her voice wasn't strong and the time difference between Halifax and Edmonton was inconvenient. I wish we would have continued it longer, but I gratefully look back at these emails recently. I was reminded of things like the hour-long speech that she was asked to give at the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternative fundraiser, and how incredibly proud I was of her when Just Jen was released and recognized for the Atlantic Book Award. Now, some of the questions were lighthearted, raspberry or strawberry, and some were the start of something historic. On February 24th, 2018, I asked Jen, what was the highlight of today? The response: I had a meeting with Steve Etsy, the partner of the Former Disabled Persons Commission. He was really cheerful, and he thinks we should get 4 people with disabilities together to buy a house that we convert into disabled uses and share in aid. 5 years later, and much work later, their vision is a reality. To paraphrase Jen, she saw herself as courageous in a lot of little ways. She shared personal stories through her memoir. She trusted her life with assistants and roommates who were not professionals, but good people with kind hearts. She ran for city council. She pursued the housing project with ILNS. I disagree with Jen. Any one of those things shows a tremendous amount of courage, and she has a life filled with such examples. Jen lived outside the confines of her body. Jen has written 3 books and was working on a 4th. The Just Jen book tour was an incredibly special time in her life. Still able to travel, she connected with friends and family and supporters across the country to share and celebrate. You might chat with Jaunt for some memorable stories of their adventures. Jen would likely say that her favorite book Sounds Like a Halifax Adventure, even though it's the least widely distributed. She wrote it as a gift for Tom. And consistent with what I believe Jen would want, there's copies available. So if you don't have one, please take one. Jen would often gift her books because what she really wanted most was for the stories to be shared. Tom told me early in his relationship with Jen, she explained to him that her life was a group project. One might argue that Jen would want that for all our lives, that we are meant to live in community, sharing and growing together. I had the privilege of being in Halifax in the days immediately following Jen's passing. I was overwhelmed by the outpouring of love and respect for my sister. The stories I was able to hear from those personally impacted by her will stay with me forever. More than one friend shared how Jen made them feel welcome when they first moved to Halifax. She gave them a family when theirs was across the globe. Jen's sense of humor and generosity of spirit were gifts that she shared with many. She was both a mentor and a friend. Jen's accomplishments and accolades within the community of Halifax are vast. Jen really did create change wherever she went, not because of her disability or in spite of it, but because of who she was. She listened intensely, acted boldly, and loved immensely. She showed us that vulnerability and strength are not mutually exclusive. Her consistency of character is evident in the stories that weave together the tapestry of her life. She was just Jen.
Thank you so much, Nicole. I'm now going to call on Tom Elliott to offer a special memorial tribute to his partner, Jen.
Thanks, Stephen. Jen's death on September 17th seemed in some ways so sudden, but in looking back, You can see it as being slow and even gentle, like the fall in Nova Scotia. She told me when she was working on the book that would become Just Jen that she thought it would be the last thing that she would ever do. And she told me that because she was finding a new path for herself after relinquishing her job at the Ecology Action Center in 2013 due to the weakening of her voice. Writing seemed possible. She had once studied journalism, and writing Just Jen became a way for Jen to deal with an awareness of her mortality the best way she could. When she told me that, I appreciated the genius and bravery of that decision, though I could never bring myself to think about her dying beyond accepting that it wasn't unusual that everyone's dying and that I loved her. She told me before the thought of dying made her feel like she did when she was a little girl listening to the sounds of a party in the house, wanting to know so badly what everyone was doing. Why were they laughing just then, knowing she had to go to her room? I believe she was considering the book as the last thing she might do because losing her voice was terrifying to her. Thoughts in such abundance, she thought of her voice as the last way she had to express and determine herself. When I met her, she used a microphone and a speaker for amplification when she needed it. We were introduced to alternative communication methods, starting with eye scanning technology. We even made a trip to Toronto to attend an alternative communication conference. The trip itself, the fact that we could manage doing something like that was an adventure. At the same time, Jen was becoming increasingly concerned about being institutionalized due to the high cost of self-determination in the face of inadequate public support. Though she wrote about wanting to keep feelings inside, we actually did talk about what living in a nursing home could be like for us. It didn't seem like a good option, not because the travel time might be too long or the conditions of a nursing home would lessen my feelings for her, but because of how much worse daily life in an institution would be, always needing to fight for the life that she wanted, especially as her voice was fading. We shared ideas and preliminary research early on about what might work better. Just Jen was released in April 2017, late April. The launch was, at least at the time, the largest firm it had had for a local book. Jen got to bask for a little while to do interviews, read how the book had touched people, badger everyone she could about how many copies they could buy, etc. After she told the story of her life, she found she had more life left over. Jen's second book, Sounds Like a Halifax Adventure, gets left out as often as not, but I think it reveals a meaningful side of Jen that's less apparent looking at her other work. Everyone who's met her knows that she dropped witty comments as often as I drop keys in the dark grass. And the many may think of her in the context of significant advocacy work. This book, though, is what Jen was like, just daydreaming, unfolding ideas around what she imagined as a tourist guide to Halifax, which is a concession to marketability. When she was working on the second book, she had joined with Independence Now, then No More Warehousing and ILNS to fight for better living situation for herself and many people like her. Maybe a work of interactive fiction featuring the adventures of the sound of a doorbell and the sound of a refrigerator was too odd for anyone but Jen to attempt publishing. The pandemic hit while it was at the printers. I lived with Jen for 3 years so that she wouldn't get COVID through having home care workers in and out. She said later, not to me, but she had enjoyed that time. It means everything to me now that we had those years together. She ran for council during this time and wrote most of her third book, Making a Home, about the experience of the shared services pilot that would keep her and many other young people out of institutions, making proper homes. It felt like time passed so quickly. By now, Jen's voice had faded so that it was almost impossible to hear. Eye scanning technology never really worked for Jen. In fact, we never really even gave over to using it. despite that it meant to provide a backdrop as MS took more and more, a backup. I thought about that often. There were significant technical issues, Jen's being legally blind with quavering pupils and a limited ability to move. Some of these issues we were able to overcome with help from a company called Neckclay and a woman named Dawn who designed a head mount for chin-activated selection switches. These may still be solutions for someone else. They were really good ideas. It just didn't work out for Jen. Putting a screen in front of Jen's face in a precise position when she wanted to communicate might have worked if Jen spent her time online, was often alone. Jen could hear when her ears were unblocked and could see you if you were close. She also communicated so much through her facial expressions. I wish I still had some of the photos I sometimes included with comments she would text to her mom. These are always photos of a specific grin that I consider a classic. I don't know if anyone remembers Norman Fell from the TV show Three's Company, but Jen did that grin even better. By the time Jen wrote her third book, Making a Home, she had adopted a much simpler communication system involving you breaking down and going through the alphabet and Jen blinking. It had rough beginnings the first time she had gotten aspiration pneumonia. It was greatly refined by her assistant and roommate, Abby Weisbrot, who passed on the best possible version. Jen connected with people directly. It became more and more difficult, but it was the only way that made sense. MS made Jen about as vulnerable as a person could be. During her life, she had grown so that she chose to lean even further into that vulnerability. When she would tease you, which is to say, during her waking hours, it's not hard to imagine that choosing to be so vulnerable would also require a kind of balancing. I appreciate independence as a frame that reveals an imbalance of power, and I see it as a matter of self-determination. I think we temporarily able-bodied people tend to overestimate or misconstrue how independent we really are. Jen wrote about that. Soon after we met, Jen explained my life as a group project. The way Jen was in the world makes me think a lot of Ubuntu, the African idea often expressed by the saying, I am because we are, holding that humanity is shared, something that doesn't exist independently, but only in relation to other people. It doesn't prescribe what those relations should be, but Jen wasn't prescriptive either. A man had said online that Jen showed us how to live, and I took that to mean that the way Jen was in the world brought forth a desire in people to be more fully human. Before Jen went into the hospital for the last time, we were able to go swimming a couple of times in the great new outdoor pool in Cogswell. It was warm and a web of sunlight wavered in the water. I looked down to see leaves on the floor of the pool. Jen was floating with me, like we were dancing, my hand just holding her head. Thanks, everyone, for coming. Bye.
Thank you so much, Tom. We'll now hear music by Jaunt Open Heart and Choir.
it could be possible?
Do you think it really, really could be possible?
Yes, I think it really, really could be possible.
All of us together can change the way the world works.
All of us together can change the way the world works.
You and me together will change the way the world
You
works.
and me together will change the way the world works.
Grown up being told a load of lies.
Grown up being told a load of lies.
How to be scared and how to close our eyes.
How to be scared and how to close our eyes.
Yeah, we've been led by villains and fools.
We've been led by villains and fools.
It's time to leave it behind, there is work to do.
So we'll leave them behind, there is work to do.
Oh, I do it all with a smile on my face. Let the ego die and the heart take its place. Let the ego die and the heart take its place. Yeah, do you think it could be possible?
Yes, I think it could be possible.
Do you think it really, really could be possible?
Yes, I think it could be possible.
Together can change the way the world works.
All of us together can change the way the world works.
Together will change the way the world works.
You and me together will change the way the world works.
I ever wondered why they keep trying to say that it's all okay, that it's so much we must change. So much we must change. Oh, finally woken up, but it feels so good to have understood. We're all in this together. All in this together. One family together. One family together. Oh, there's so much pain. Sometimes I don't think we can change. So I guess it isn't possible.
Yes, it is. Of course, the change is possible.
I thought you said it wasn't possible.
Yes, it is. Of course, the change is possible. All of us together can change the way the world works.
Together can change the way the world works.
Together can change the way the world works.
You and me together will change the way the world works. Put out with a smile on our face, and the ego die, the heart take its place. The ego die, the heart take its place. Yeah, do you think it could be possible?
Yes, I think it could be possible.
Do you think it really, really could be possible?
Yes, I think it could be possible.
Yes, I think.
I think it could be possible.
Yes, I think.
I think it could be possible.
So is this microphone on? It is. That's good, because that's what it's supposed to be for the next section here. Thank you, and thanks to everyone who helped to make this event so special. Let me invite anyone who has a memory to share to come up, and maybe if you come up on this side, we can work our way around the room. Perhaps I can start with one of my own memories of Jen, which is from the first time I encountered her, and it's still for me a memorable memory. It's August 2000, the first day for incoming one-year journalism students. Usually just a formality, students registering for their classes and finding their way around campus. So I wasn't worried that I couldn't be there for the morning session. I'd been attending my own courses in Baltimore and taking the overnight ferry back from Yarmouth, intending a nice leisurely drive to Halifax to be there for when things really got started after lunch. Somewhere around Liverpool, I got a frantic phone call. One of the new students was in a wheelchair. I'd had correspondence and conversations with Jen in the months leading up to her arrival in Halifax, and she had never mentioned once that she was in a wheelchair. Of course, why should she? She had every right to expect that we would be prepared for that. We weren't. Although the university had recently installed an elevator to the journalism school on the 3rd floor, we were far from fully accessible. To make matters worse, August was always the height of construction season on college campuses, and the only accessible entrance to get to the elevator was a mud bath. So during her first week on campus, members of the maintenance crew would wait for Jen near the entrance each morning and carry her, wheelchair and all, over the threshold so that she could get to class. What struck me then, and strikes me now, was the special way in which Jen managed to call us out on our many failures when it came to accessibility and other things, but did it with such wit and a twinkle in her eye that made you want to be better than you were. To me, that was always Jen, always will be, and with apologies to Nicole, never just Jen. So anyone else who would like to come up and share some memories, please do.
Jen's impact on my life was immeasurable. In reflecting on the moments shared with Jen, I find meaning in the experiences that shaped our connection. I started working with Jen 7 months after moving to Canada from Jamaica as an international student with no parental support. I became her roommate 1 month after starting the job. I don't know what I would have done if Jen didn't come into my life. She gave me an opportunity to make money to pay my tuition, even if she had to pay me under the table. She gave me a roof over my head. Jennifer, with her boundless empathy, became more than a friend. She was a lifeline, a pillar of strength, and a maternal figure. Living with her and her cats for 3 years did keep me on my feet. Little did she know I needed her as much as she needed me. Sharing a space with Jen was about sharing burdens, dreams, and triumphs. Working with Jen during the days and nights were difficult sometimes, but for the most part, it was an honorable experience, which prepared me for life. I know it was not easy for her to listen to me complain about school for 3 years, but she listened well, and provided much unsolicited advice. Advice that prepared me for success and helped me to walk in her shoe of becoming valedictorian for my university. Her support knew no bounds. Jen was always willing to help solve any problem I had. When I was cold, which was quite often coming from Jamaica, she bought me robes and winter gears. She gifted me a warm blanket 6 years ago that I still use every night, even last night. When I got a heartbreak, Jen texted me saying, "Crystal, I could run over the guy's toes with my chair if I wanted her to." Even with humor, she was committed to help me. During exam periods, Jen would give me time off from work to study while I set her up with Netflix. I know as the movie starts, she would fall asleep, and I would tease her a lot about that as expected, but she had the Erbitol all the time. One day she said, and I quote, "Netflix isn't bad. Netflix is my friend. It does not judge or expect me to be more than I am. It hasn't yelled at me for falling asleep during any of the shows. This can't be said for certain other friends," end quote. Even in those words, I found meaning. Jen did not judge. She did not expect us to be more than we are. Her compassion, generosity, and enthusiasm for life made our lives more enriching. When Jen found out that I was from an island but couldn't swim, she made every effort to get me to learn. Jen was a great swimmer, and she loved it. She thought I was missing out on life for not being able to swim. Jen took up the responsibility, nonetheless, of paying and organizing swimming lessons for me. I still don't know how to swim, though. When she gifted me the opportunity for swimming lessons, she wasn't just offering a class. She was extending an invitation to conquer fears and embrace new waters, both literally and metaphorically. Jen's ambitions were not self-serving. They were driven by a desire to impact the world positively, starting with the lives of those around her. She had a remarkable ability to make cherished to make me cherish, rather, life's small pleasures as profoundly as its grand moments. Her love for writing letters and crafting witty and sometimes rude, heartfelt cards was more than a hobby. It was her way of weaving happiness into the lives of others. I was lost, she found me, she guided me. Jen's life was a testament to the beauty of balance. She was humble, but her head was in the clouds. She was a true champion of inclusiveness and equality. Today, as we celebrate Jennifer Powley, let us remember her not just for the love she gave, but for the inspiration she ignited within us. Let us continue to embrace new waters, dream big, find joy in simplicity, and extend our hands to lift others as she so selflessly did. Rest in peace, dear Jennifer. I love you. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Howard Epstein. I'm one of Jen's very many friends here in Halifax. Barbara, I've met you, of course, and I know Tom. Nicole, I've not met you before, but I heard you use the word brilliant about Jen, and I want to illustrate how those of us who have dealt with her in a slightly different context actually experienced that. For quite a number of years, I taught part-time at Dalhousie's Law School, and the course that I taught was land use planning law. Now, this is an optional course for second or third year law students, but it's also a mandatory course for students who are doing a master's degree in planning at the planning school. And that was one of the programs that Jen was enrolled in, so she ended up in my class. And the students, some of them were law students, some of them were planning students, all had to go through the same process of evaluation through essay writing and exams. Jen got the highest grade in the class of all the students. That includes the law students and the planning students. I had met her briefly before she became my student, but I was wildly impressed by her accomplishments that year, and that was really how we became friends. And on a related point, let me tell you something that happened when Jen published her book, Just Jen, in April of 2017. Now, I also published a book at exactly the same time, and it was a textbook on land use planning law. This was 600 riveting pages on the law of zoning, and because the books kind of came out at the same time, I suggested to Jen that we should just get together and swap books. Now, Jen and Tom, well, I thought they had multiple cats. I think it only turned out to be one cat, but I'm allergic to cats. And so I didn't go over to their place all that often, but we did arrange on a Friday afternoon that I would go over and we would actually exchange our books. And this happened, and I said to Jen, well, you know, here it is, it's the weekend. I guess we can spend the weekend reading each other's books. And Jen said, well, if we're going to do that, you're in for a much better weekend than I am. So what I wanted to illustrate was she had a really wicked mouth on her.
I don't think I can do anything to top that. But my name's Judy Haven, and I was a friend of Jen's. I just have something short to read. I met Jen Powley in October 2017 on a stage in a big hall. It seems strange that she was on the stage since she was physically disabled and drove a wheelchair, but that's where she was. That night, she was the invited guest at our annual fundraiser and dinner for the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives, Nova Scotia. We talked, and I met her partner, Tom, who as a filmmaker was really handy with the technology that Jen was going to use to give her speech. The previous May, Fernwood Books had just published her first book, Just Jen. That night, I got her to sign my copy. Jen stamped her signature into my book, and then she asked me if I could buy 20 more for Christmas gifts to increase her sales. Her sense of humor threw me, maybe because I didn't expect somebody with profound disabilities would have such a clever and dry sense of humor. I remember that was the start of a friendship that wasn't as close as some, given our 30-year gap in ages. But it was a deep, respectful relationship that was wonderful. I remember sitting on a dining room chair in her bedroom, seeing her 40 colorful scarves hanging on the hooks along the wall. She often lay in bed when we discussed politics, sometimes with one of her aides translating her words to me as I could barely hear her diminished voice. Usually her tiny, adorable cat, Tula, jumped on the bed to snuggle. One day in June 2020, I talked to her about running for Halifax Regional Council. We needed her on council. We both lived in Halifax South downtown, the district represented by Way Mason. He had had 2 terms already, and we knew many voters were ready for a change. At first, she was reluctant. Her voice was weak, and she was worried she didn't have the stamina for a campaign. I convinced her now was the time. A few weeks later, after raising money from supporters, we were able to hire a campaign manager and get a local filmmaker to make a short video about her and her platform. We could actually start a campaign for Jen Powley for District 7. Jen was brilliant. She had a good sense and radical streak and a positive spirit. She chose a cabinet of about 10 people, including Howard, actually, who met regularly at her apartment. All had good ideas and were willing to devote serious energy to her campaign. Her debating skills were good and she could write well. We had brochures, op-eds, badges to wear, lawn signs, window signs. All in all, the campaign was a great success. She came in second, netting 1,882 votes, or 31% of the vote. The incumbent got 62%. We thought this was a great result. She gave an able-bodied white man a run for his money. I knew Jen as an activist. There was seldom a demonstration she did not attend, often with her partner, Tom. She and some others managed to persuade the province's disability services to try a pilot housing program. Jem and some of the others of us proposed a group home in which 4 or 5 people could live. If they had severe disabilities, they could live together and get assistance from aides on a 24-hour basis. The province normally pays only for 6 hours of care from aides, and no one knows what those who cannot use their arms and legs do for the other 18 hours of the day. Eventually, the project was approved and several others moved in with Jen to form the first residential home for severely disabled adults. Jen's spirit was high. She kept writing since our first meeting. She published 2 more books, and I'm sure she was hard at work on another. Once, I don't know why, I asked her why she had such a severe, debilitating case of MS. She smiled and said, "Just lucky, I guess."
Good afternoon. My name's Lois Miller. I'm the former executive director at Independent Living Nova Scotia, and you've heard that name several times this afternoon, sometimes ILNS. I know some of the staff and a number of members who are here today are part of, involved with Independent Living Nova Scotia. I'm really happy to see them here. I'm not going to attempt to give a tribute to Jen. That has been done this afternoon and very beautifully. I want especially to thank Nicole and Tom for sharing those tributes with us. Not an easy thing to do, as I very well know. I'll just share with you a little bit of an anecdote. Jen joined me on the staff of Independent Living. I was able to hire her a number of years ago. I think she probably came to us after she had worked for you, Stephen. So I was very pleased to be able to hire Jen. We had very limited funding, as so many nonprofits do. I was able to hire her under an intern program, an internship that was funded by the federal government, an excellent program that let organizations like mine hire a person at the beginning of their career, a person who faced many struggles, to get a good job in the community. I was able to hire 2 persons through that program, which the federal government sadly scrapped when they downloaded the employment support programs to the province, and then of course Nova Scotia didn't continue many of them. But that program was wonderful. I was able to hire both Jen and Holly Bartlett, whom some of you will know, both of whom sadly are now gone. Great losses, brilliant young women. I loved hiring young people like Jen. I see a couple of other people here, Anna, Kevin. There may be others whom I was able to hire, finding pots of funds here and there. At any rate, when it was time for Jen, when Jen's program she was working with was coming to an end because it was a time-limited project, I was always trying to hold an exit interview with outgoing staff because I knew I could learn a lot from them as they moved on. And I always asked in those exit interviews, do you have suggestions for us, ways we can improve, things that we can do better, changes you might like to see? And most of the people would give me excellent suggestions about the position they were leaving. Here's something you could do. We can add this to that program. Here are suggestions. But not Jen. What she launched into was a critique of a practice that I followed, not something to do with the job she had had, but with my job, which for those of you who knew Jen well, I should not have been surprised about, right? Yes, her mother knows. What can we do to improve the job you had? Oh no, it was what I could do to improve my job. And it took me a bit of a surprise because she was very much opposed to one practice I was quite proud actually of using as executive director. And it suddenly hit me. Jen is not really asking me or expecting me to learn from this discussion. She is thinking of what can I learn from that executive director that I can then take for the next position that I will have when I might not be an executive director, she might have thought, but I will be in a more senior position. How can I use this last opportunity to learn skills that will move me along? So we had an excellent discussion about this practice that I used that she disagreed with. Jen went on from us to work with Nova Scotia League for Equal Opportunity, and in a more senior position, she was their coordinator. And a year or so later, our paths crossed, and she was there in her position, I in mine. And she came over and said to me, Lois, I always wanted to follow up on that, those comments I made to you about how I disagreed with that practice you used. And I said, oh, it was interesting discussion. She said, no, what I want to say to you is, now I know you were right. So anyway, that's my little anecdote for Jen. A lot of fun to work with her, and I miss those days so much. Thank you all. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Caitlin Phillips, and I work for Independent Living Nova Scotia. I got to know Jen throughout the 5 years at ILNS that I've been there. whether through her attendance to various ILNS events, such as our Art of Disability Festival, our Christmas Gala, and of course our annual Turkey Bingo, which was a recent addition to our offerings and which seemed Jen won almost every opportunity. It was very exciting. To her work developing a 24/7 care model for persons with significant physical disabilities to live in community, as well as the resulting partnership with ILNS and the business case presented to the government of Nova Scotia. And it would be remiss not to mention the resulting shared services project Jen contributed to and was also a part of. To this day, I'm still not sure where this project would have been for all of Jen's contributions, as well as also providing the opportunity to secure a condo unit right beside her own in the early stages of this project. Thank you for allowing me to provide the following tribute to Jen on behalf of Carrie Ernst, who is the Executive Director of ILNS. Carrie sends her condolences as she wished to be here today, however, could not be due to a death in her family. What I will share with you today about Jen will not be surprising, and I hope it brings a smile to your face. Jen was one of the smartest individuals I've ever known. As previously mentioned, she holds 4 degrees across a breadth of interest areas, Bachelor of Arts, Bachelor of Journalism, Masters in Urban Planning, and Masters of Fine Arts in Creative Nonfiction. Jen enjoyed studying a vast array of topics, but her passion was learning about people. She valued connection. As you know, Jen published 3 books and had begun research toward a 4th, looking to explore the cultural and systemic experiences of people with disabilities around the world. She became especially invigorated when her natural curiosity brought her to a path that she sensed may lead to meaningful change. She advocated for numerous causes, including environmental sustainability, accessibility, disability rights, refugee and LGBTQ+ rights, and the right to housing, wanting to amplify the voices of those less heard. She wanted all people to be treated with respect. Many organizations benefited from Jen's fierce spirit and commitment, for which she received numerous awards of recognition. Some of those she worked with included the Ecology Action Centre, the Accessibility Directorate of Nova Scotia, the Open Harbour Refugee Association, the Rainbow Refugee Association of Nova Scotia, the JRG Society for the Arts, and of course, Independent Living, where she did receive the Lois Miller Tulip Award. Jen also sat on the Independent Living Canada Board of Directors as Nova Scotia's representative since last fall. During this time, Jen was eager to participate in board committee work, and although she had lost the ability to speak, her advocacy, intelligence, and quick wit were ever present. She ensured she brought forward her opinions and concerns and had no fear of sharing ideas and concepts that were often outside the box. She did all of this with respect and empathy. After Jen's death, numerous requests for interviews came to ILNS. Each of these requests asked the same question: what was her legacy? A few of Carrie's answers were off the cuff and obvious. Jen was an environmental activist and also reminded Carrie constantly that she wasn't aware of her carbon footprint, but was impressed with her hybrid car purchase. Jen was an urban planner, accessibility expert, advocate, colleague, and best-selling author. However, Jen was also a life partner, daughter, sister, mentor, student, and friend. And in these roles, we were all gifted the privilege of living life with her, laughing, persisting, overcoming barriers, quite often not hers, but our own, with her steady guidance and loving her. Jen will forever be remembered as a trailblazer who significantly changed the landscape of the disability community, and left a lasting imprint on all of our hearts. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Nancy Walker. I actually sit on the board of Independent Living. I've been asked to read a piece here from Anne McCrae, who's Steve Estie's wife, and sadly he passed away the week before Jen, and he was another giant in our community for disability. So we've lost some really wonderful people in the past very short time. Also, I knew Jen just from committees I worked on through the autism community, and I always really enjoyed Jen. She was so witty and brilliant, and so it's very sad to have to be here, but it's a wonderful tribute. So from Anne McCrae, I am so sorry not to be able to join you all today to celebrate the life of Jen, but for reasons I am unable to do so. I have been thinking a lot lately about how Jen and I moved in and out of our professional lives over the course of the last 20 years or so. Steve and I had moved away from the province for about 10 years, and when we returned, one of the first committees I was asked to join was a committee sparked by the fact that after Juan, Jen and others was trapped in her apartment for a significant period with no power. She was a catalyst to the creation of a committee that worked with EMO and provincial departments to improve access to programs and services that would support the safety of people with disabilities in times of natural and human-made disasters. Work that, of course, still needs our attention today. After Jen went back to school and got her degree in urban planning, she again became concerned about the difficulties people with disabilities were having in accessing transportation services. Lack of accessible taxi services was a serious issue. Again, she worked with us at the Commission to draft a report outlining how such a service could operate in Halifax. When I moved to the Department of Community Services, Jen again was a catalyst, along with Independent Living Nova Scotia, to advocate for improved services for people with significant disabilities to live in community. Again, I briefly had the honor of working with Jen to make this dream a reality. I was so glad that her advocacy meant that she got to live her life in community, not in a nursing home. I then had the privilege of being the National Executive Director of Independent Living Canada for 2 years. Each of our centres would nominate someone to sit on our national board. I was so happy when Carrie nominated Jen to be the Nova Scotia rep. She always asked the right question at the right time. Jen has taught us all how to live a good life in community, and it is our job now to carry on her work and continue to work on the issues that were near and dear to her heart. Rest in peace, Jen. You have earned it. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Valerie Mansour, because I do need these. And I became friends with Jen through Open Harbor Refugee Association. Jen was actually a founding member of ORA, which started in 2016. She was on our board of directors and was incredibly committed to the families we sponsored. Her focus was always to do what was best for them. She handled our mail. She would often forward emails with strong recommendations on how you might answer them. She wrote reports, very well researched. At one point, she took on a survey of all the bars and clubs in town so that we could find out the best places to have a trivia night. Pre-COVID, we met in her condo building in the conference room. So that made it hard for Jen to miss meetings, unless, of course, it was a date night with Tom. We had a few potlucks at her condo. One time, I made one of 2 mac and cheeses. She actually emailed me a review afterwards. And she managed to combine our shared interest of food and grammar. I found it recently, and this is part of it. Tom's 2 favorite vegetables are spinach and broccoli. When I heard you had added broccoli to your casserole, you were automatically the winner of the competition. That said, Tom and I did the macaroni in a side-by-side comparison. I wanted to say we tasted the macaronis, but Tom told me that the word macaroni is already plural. Then we looked it up, and I got the entire history of how we should deal with plural nouns, especially when it comes to Italian food. Jen weighed in on everything that Ora was doing, even if she wasn't directly involved. You'd still get an email. So we were organizing an online cooking show, and we were planning to mail or to distribute ingredients to our participants. So Jen emailed me out of the blue one day and said, I also want to bring up my concerns about packaging the groceries. I think reusable containers would be ideal, or paper. I do not support any styrofoam or plastic that would be thrown away. This includes baggies. We listened to her. At one meeting, someone lamented that one of our sponsored refugees would always say, I'm not hungry, when he was out on an excursion with our group. There's this pause in the meeting, and I could hear this little rumble coming, and Jen pipes up, you're asking the wrong question. She said, he's just being polite. You have to say, we're going to eat now. Would you like this or that? She always had good advice. I invited Jen to present to a national meeting of editors, and she said right away, yes, right away, but she kept adding more and more people to the panel because she wanted to make sure everybody who had anything to do with her book was acknowledged. I told her at the time that I had bought 3 copies of her book. She said, great. She said, 1 is obligatory, 2 is nice, but 3 is perfect. She had high standards for herself. I helped out a bit on her campaign when she ran for council, and she was so disappointed she lost, but I reminded her she'd come in second and had almost 2,000 votes. But then when I was lamenting about something one time, she said, you could only do so much. I think Jen did more than her share. Jen was a superstar, and I will miss her. And in a couple of weeks, when our group welcomes a new family that is just now escaping the war in Sudan, we'll have fond memories of Jen and lots of advice to guide us. Thanks.
Hi, everybody. My name is Fazila. I work for Fernwood Publishing. I was very honored to be Jen's editor on her last book. And I wanted to talk about her voice, because as an editor, that's something that we talk about a lot. Voice meaning style, meaning narrative, and content. And Jen had a lot of all of that. But when you ask her about her voice, she often described it as little or not able to be heard. And I just wanted to talk about some of the ways in which she made herself heard loud and clear all the time. The first way is through her advocacy, and we've heard a lot about her multiple passions, including environmental justice and disability rights. And she was a comrade that was often around for every issue that anyone else had, because she was so compassionate. The second way is through her writing. She was an amazing writer and made herself able to do that through these alternative communications and through the help of her assistants. And we were able to produce a book in a way that I had never worked with before. And the book is wonderful, and it talks about her making a home. It talks about her fight to have people who have disabilities live in community and not be institutionalized. We're also doing a book club that I hope everybody will join for. It's online on November 7th, and if you check our website, Fernwood Publishing, you'll be able to see the ways to join that. And the third way is through her humor. We've gotten lots of examples of this, but I wanted to share one too. At the end of our process together, I told Jen that I also have MS, and I was diagnosed when I moved to Halifax in 2016. And because her book Just Jen came out the year after, just a few months after I moved here actually, she's always been this inspiration for how to live with this disease in the biggest way possible. And this was kind of a serious outpouring of information. And her response was, well, if anyone has to have it, I'm glad it's someone as talented as you, because it looks good on us.
This thing doesn't go anywhere. Okay. For us shorties in here. Okay. Thank you, Tom. Hi. I'm Vicky. And for those of you who don't know me, I was Jen's work colleague for many years, and for the last 9 months, I had the privilege of being her roommate. So I'm gonna share some quick little stories here before everybody goes, "What is that woman wearing? Is she deranged?" I have a job how come that Jen wouldn't want me to give up? In fact, if I turned down the contract, I think she would haunt me. So this was a good idea. But normally I do not dress like this. Let's just get that off the table. So I first met Jen when I was, 10 or 11. My mother, who worked for NS Leo, said, "I want you to meet this woman." And I said, "Okay." And she said, "I want you to pay attention to this woman because she's gonna do great things. And she's really smart. And you should listen to her because that's what I want you to be like when you grow up." Okay? And I said, "Oh, crap, okay. A lot to live up to." And then I met her, and back then she did still have a voice, and she was using, she had just started using a power chair, I believe. I remember thinking, geez, this lady is really pretty, and she's really smart. And I don't know how I'm gonna deal with that. I'm gonna live up to that. But anyway, fast forward approximately, 15 years, and I started a group called Independence Now with some other women, and Jen joined us, and Jen and John walked in the room. I believe it was John, and I thought to myself, "Oh, good, she's here. Things are gonna get done." And then fast forward a little more, she asked me to help with some no more warehousing things. And one thing I always admired about Jen was she was angry about the state of the world, but she never let that anger get in the way of the mission, which was to make sure that everybody had what they needed to live full, productive lives with meaning. And because of the work she's done, I spent the majority of my adult life screaming at the government, telling them to do better. But I had no idea how to do that. So Jen came up with the business plan, which is the harder part. And fortunately for me, I am the direct recipient of her vision and her generosity. We were very different people, and she somehow managed to put up with me. I remember we did a documentary about the pilot. And they asked her, "What do you like about having Vicky as a roommate?" And she said, "I'm glad to have someone smart." And I thought, if Jen Powley thinks I'm smart, I must be pretty clever. That's one of the greatest compliments I've ever received. Jen welcomed me into her home, gave me the time to heal and talk about my trauma, and eat the cookie dough that I made, even when it was bad. We made pumpkin balls one time. That did not go well. And she gave me a home, gave me my life back. Recently, in August, she paid for a dog that I was able to adopt. Unfortunately, we had to give her back, but she gave me that gift. And I know she kind of didn't like dogs. So that's a thing. And I said, "Thank you." And she said, "I can see she makes you happy." So, Jen, you made a lot of people very happy. And I owe you my life. And I'm sorry. I promise to carry on that legacy, and I hope that I can do have as good a job as you did, because then I'm doing something right. Thanks.
Hi, my name is Sarah Curry, and 2023, July, I believe it was the 17th, was the first day I started working with Jen. I believe that I am fortunate to be the last staff hired to be able to work with her. And the fact that it was such a short time blows my mind, because she impacted my life more in that short time than a lot of people I've known for years. I remember walking in and being very excited to see cats, because I love cats, and that was my first hint at Jen's big heart. And Jasmine's big heart for Jen, very, very protective cat. She gave people a lot of trouble who wanted to be around Jen, because, you know, Jen just inspired that kind of love. And that cat loved her. She didn't understand we were helping. And she really was very fiercely protective of Jen. And, you know, then I found out from one of the staff that there was this cool thing on Fridays called Fashion Fridays, where, you know, since we were allowed to do casual most of the time, we were able to do dress up. And I love to dress up and get all fancy. And, you know, when I heard that it was Jen, I was like, great job, like, this is great, you know. And then I heard that her and Vicky, who you just heard, were planning a water gun fight. And I'm like, this is amazing. You know, what kind of place have I moved into, you know, like, started working at? It's great. Huge, you know, sense of fun. And, you know, anyone who spent any time with her knows that she teased people mercilessly, but somehow managed to do it with a really big heart. And, sorry. you know, I remember telling her one day about my best friend, Phil, who I never shut up about. And I was like, you know, it's my best friend, he's my wingman. And the first thing she said about this man she'd never heard of before was, well, if he's your wingman, you might crash. And I said to her on a different day that, you know, if we hadn't met this way, we never would have made friends out in the outside world, because I always was intimidated by people who teased a lot. You know, growing up, I was really bad at dealing with it. I didn't get it. I have a social disorder, and it was confusing to me. I didn't understand that it was all in good fun. And I told her, but you know what? I don't know how, but you make it work. Like, you know, when you do it, it doesn't feel like someone is, you know, picking on me because I've done something wrong. It feels like, I don't know, it just felt so loving. And I think that I've been very lucky to get to know her. And not to gloat, but I have a very high IQ. And on the bus yesterday, I was conversing with a gentleman in a wheelchair about some of the things that I've learned about, you know, wheelchair accessibility and that kind of things, and about how, you know, people don't always take people in wheelchairs seriously. And I said, I knew this woman, and I have a high IQ, but I'm telling you, I could not keep up with her. She was absolutely brilliant and a beautiful soul. And if I can accomplish just a tiny percent, if I can embody just the littlest bit of Jen, then, wow, I must be amazing. Because she was, well, a gift to us all. Thank you.
Tom and Nicole, I want to thank you for making me cry, and that incredible glimpse, insight, reflection on Jen's life. And Barb and family for organizing this event and all the love you put into it. And my daughter's going to be very jealous of those cupcakes. Yeah. So there's some people who would have liked to have been here today but can't. I have a note from two of them. David Donnelly, environmental lawyer, a bad joke teller, and Canada's 34th best oyster shucker. And he and Jen used to engage in lots of repartee. And also Bruce Laurie, who's the president of the Ivy Foundation. Here's the note. Jen succeeded in creating one of Canada's best organized land use planning advocacy movements in the form of our HRM Alliance. With her colleagues at Ecology Action Centre, she did this very quickly from scratch, creating outstanding communication and planning documents that are to this day written into the Environmental Heritage Protection Policy maps of HRM. This toil and achievement was all done in good humor. Jen was a facilitator, a conciliator, and a leader. Her wicked and playfully sarcastic sense of humor let you know right away she would suffer fools in the environmental movement gladly, lest she be lonely. You have to read that over to get that one. There is an old saying attributed to Nelson Mandela that coaches use to motivate athletes. A winner is a dreamer who never gives up. I would attribute this to Jen. Jen Powley was and is a social justice advocate who was never satisfied and, given her view of the world, never should be. That's from David and Bruce. I'm Mark Butler. I worked with Jen at the Ecology Action Centre. Jen used to call me one of her favorite bosses. I think that's a compliment. And as we heard from Stephen and others, of course, I was never her boss. Who could be the boss of Jen? After Jen left EAC, we stayed friends. I would occasionally write reference letters for her. And I haven't heard this mentioned, but I think all of us probably deserve to be in the Senate of Canada. But Jen had the gumption or the chutzpah or whatever to apply to be a senator. It's very unfortunate she didn't get it, but it just shows her audacity and ambition. David described beautifully one of Jen's contributions, not just to the community, but to this place we call a city or a municipality. Her fingerprints will forever be on the shape of Halifax, even with the headwinds good urban planning is facing these days. Briefly, I want to pick up on something else David mentioned, her humor. Remember the Just Jen book launch? I thought it was yuck yucks, but better. She loved it up there, and she's so funny. She was a performer in the best sense of the word. I went back over and read some of my email exchanges with her because of all the zinging replies I would get from her. I had thought I might read some of them out loud. I won't do that. Before I finish, I want to acknowledge all the incredible, intelligent, and amusing assistants Jen had over the years. You were wonderful. When you met Jen, you got 2 for 1. I will read out one email. Me, how's it going? I owe you some money. You just owe me, always.
Hi, my name is Jess. I was one of Jen's assistants. Jen had many gifts, lived many lives. But one of them that I was always in awe of was her ability to, the way she let people feel heard, seen, and that you had a voice and you really mattered. One of my first days of work of the Island S Shared Attendant Pilot Program, I met Jen, and she gave me her complete undivided attention. And we talked, she asked me questions, question after question, getting to know each other. And one of the questions was, what school do you go to? Oh, I go to St. Mary's. And she goes, oh, I'm sorry. And I'm like, thinking, my first day, I'm nervous. I'm thinking something's wrong. I'm like, oh, what's wrong? Why are you sorry? She goes, I'm sorry you go to St. Mary's. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool, all right. And we continue on, and she goes, what program are you taking? And I'm taking environmental science. And that was the first time I saw the cartoon. Her eyes grow 4 sizes, and her smile also grows about 8, and her shoulders go up, and she gives you the biggest smile you've ever seen someone. And I thought to myself, okay, we'll get along just fine. This is fine. And the nerves went away. And the months went on, and there's a lot of learning. If you have ever worked with Jen, there's a lot of new stuff coming at you all at once. And I made many mistakes, especially with the scanning board. You go through the alphabet with her, she blinks, you write down the letter. So I would always go home with marks on my arms and on my hands from not having a piece of paper, because I would always make mistakes spelling, but it was okay because I went to St. Mary's, and so me making mistakes is fine. Tripping over spelling, it was normal. And I remember one day we were going out her closet, and she has these beautiful skirts that she's thrifted all of them, had them forever, and I tell her, I'm like, I need to get rid of some clothes too. I have so many dresses, but I bought 3 today, but I need to get rid of them. And she's like, why do you need to get rid of them? And I'm like, well, I never wear them. And she's like, why do you never wear them? And I say, well, my lifestyle just doesn't, I never wear dresses. Like, I work here, and I go to school, and I do sports. So when am I gonna wear a pretty sundress? And she's like, here. And I'm like, Jen, I don't know. Like, it's not really the place you would go and wear a dress. And she goes, well, we'll make it a place. And she's like, Fashion Fridays, we made it a whole thing. And you probably heard Sarah talk how excited she was when she found out that it was a thing. And we sat down for the rest of our shift and planned,
and sent it to Isle and S and Carrie and Kayla to make a day each week where people could, wear their best clothes if they wanted to. And, that's what she did. So, like, Jen, she's a metaphor in my mind of, just to get up and that the word no doesn't mean give up. I think everyone knows in this room after everyone has been talking that, Jen heard the word no a lot. She was faced with a lot of challenges, a lot of roadblocks, but not once have I seen her take that as a reason to give up. She always saw the word no as just a route, just a sign to, you have to take a different direction. And if there wasn't a different direction to take, then you have to invent it. And she did that so incredibly well. She was a leader in inventing things and, just incredible. And, she, being able to work with Jen, it's made me a better environmentalist. I always go to the grocery stores and, make those better environmental choices and maybe be a better leader because, again, she, if there wasn't a way, she would invent it. She would get down on her computer, find an assistant, and it would, she would make it up on the spot. She made me a better friend because she taught me the gift of listening to someone. There's a lot of listening to be done working with Jen. And, as an assistant, I was a gift, honestly, to be able to give her a chance to be whatever she wanted to be. And, hearing everyone speak, obviously, we know that she was a lot of things. She was a writer. She went for counsel. She was a loving husband or loving life partner. But also in hindsight as well, she gave us the mindset to be whoever we want to be. And that's how I know that her legacy will stay with me forever. Yeah, that's all I have.
Hello, everyone. My name is Nicola Davison, and I was a friend of Jen's and a member of her writing circle. We met about 10 years ago at a writing workshop with Donna Morrissey, and Liz was there as her assistant and friend at the time. And after that, we formed a writing circle that would meet in Jen's bedroom. So we would meet about a couple of times a month, and we would spontaneously come up with stories. And I knew Jen as a very playful, creative, intelligent woman. And later on, Nicole, her sister, asked if I would document Jen's daily life. And you may have seen some of the photos here on the screen of Jen. And those were done in advance of her book, Just Jen, coming out. So I had a real glimpse into Jen's life. I got to spend time with Jen and Tom, and we got to go to the art gallery and Discovery Center and all the family visits. So I was very lucky to have that connection with her, and she will be missed. Her book came out 1 year before mine did, so we went from being unpublished authors to being published authors together, which is quite a journey. She knew how nerve-wracking all of that was, and about a month or two after my book came out, she sent me this email. She said, "Is the most popular question you get, when is your next book coming out and what is it about?" I was asked that so many times that I started to turn it back to the person who was asking. I asked them when their book was coming out and negotiated what would be a reasonable time for my next book. How is the world of being published author, and how are you? Jen was just so lovely, and I'll just leave you with that. And thank you for today.
Hi, everybody. My name's Ray. I had the privilege of being one of Jen's assistants in her kind of day-to-day care and living for the last while. There's just two memories I wanted to share that I keep coming back to and thinking about. One was from when I first met Jen, and the other one was from shortly before when she passed. The first memory from when around when I first met Jen was she would often ask for clothes for tomorrow. She was a very planned person. She wanted to have her days planned as much as possible. So she asked me one day for clothes for tomorrow, and I asked her what she wanted to wear, like what she wanted to pick, what she might like. She said, "I want to see what you'll pick." I said, "Okay." So I tried to put an outfit together best I could. I myself often only wear black or one color, so she would make fun of me for that a lot. I put the outfit together and I brought it to her, and I guess I didn't do a very good job. She made kind of a face at me and said, "This isn't anything about you or your character, but that's hideous." And I just keep thinking of that memory because I think it really encapsulates, kind of who she was as a person. She was never afraid to speak her mind, never afraid to say what needed to be said. The other memory I keep thinking about, shortly before she passed, I had these chains on my glasses. I don't have them now, they've broken, but they had little skulls on them. And she was always noticing little details, but due to her challenges with vision, she wouldn't quite notice them always correctly. So she'd ask me, "What are the chains on your glasses?" And I told her they're little skulls. And she kind of rolled her eyes and said, "Why are you so obsessed with skulls? You're always wearing them." And I just kind of said, "Oh, I don't know, I just like them." And she said, "Well, I can't see why you would be so obsessed with that. Like, you should just be focused on life." And I just kind of think that also speaks to just who she was as a person and how much she loved life. And I just hope that I'll be able to live on with the courage and patience that she's taught me. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Isaac. I was also one of Jen's personal caretakers. I just want to share some stories. They're a little humorous. So when Jen was still alive, she had this basket in her closet, which was like a bunch of gifts for people right for Christmas and birthdays and stuff. You already know where this is going. So anyway, so she had all this stuff for family, for all this. And sometimes she would buy something for someone and tell me, put it in the basket, right? So I didn't look in there because it's personal. I'm not going to look in there. But after Jen passed, we were going through some of it, and some people had like really nice things, inspirational things. And then there was one, right? And someone said, "Isaac, I think this is for you." I said, "Okay, what is it?" So it said, "I'm always silently correcting your grammar." And I was like, man, come on, everybody else has all this nice stuff, and this is mine? Because it's the same thing. I go to SMU too, and I'm an English major. And whenever I would make like a little grammar mistake, like I would say, "Oh, I don't go there no more." She's like, "No more, it's any more." And all this, and so she would always constantly bug me about this and correct my grammar, right? Another thing is, Jen loved nature, right? She always wanted to go out to a pond or like a wood trail in the forest or whatever. Some of the other people didn't like that because the bugs and all this stuff, but she loved it. I love nature too, so I loved it. So I told her there's this pond by my house, right near where I live, and I said, "You want to go there?" She said, "Oh, that would be awesome." So we took the Accessibus there, me and her. And we were going on the trail, right? And there's this part that was really steep. I said, "Jen, this is really steep," like the wheelchair. Her wheelchair was like a football, right? You throw a football, it bounces all over the place. You don't know where it's going to go. Sometimes when you would take her wheelchair, it would jolt this way and that way, right? So I was like, "Jen, if we're going down here, you better be, I don't know if we should do this. Are you sure?" She's like, "Yeah, I'm sure." I was like, are you positive? I'm not trying to get fired. You're putting my job in jeopardy here. She's like, no, let's go down. I was like, okay. So we go down. Exactly what I said happened. The thing starts sliding all over. There's like a 5-foot drop on the side. And one of her wheels goes over the drop. I'm sweating. I'm like, "Okay, Jen. And I look at, I'm so scared, right? I'm like, I can't control, this thing is like 500 pounds. I can't move this wheelchair out of the, what am I gonna do? And I look at her and she's just laughing. I was like, oh my goodness. Because she didn't stress about anything, no matter what it was. Somehow, I don't even know how, I got it out of the ditch, right? So that same day, we went home, and when we were going home, we were going in the door, and the same thing happened with the wheelchair. It's going all over the place, and her arm jams into the wall, right between the wall and her wheelchair. And she screams out in pain. She goes, "Ow!" And I'm feeling so bad. I'm like, "Jen, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." And then I look at her, and she starts laughing again. I'm like, she didn't stress about anything, right? She was always even like these little things that seemed like for me were so stressful, I'm freaking out. She was calm about it. She was humorous about it. You know, she didn't take life too seriously. And one more thing I'll say is, one time, this was, I think in May, I broke my phone. My phone was smashed, couldn't use it anymore, screen was gone and everything. So I was having a bad day. I go to work, and I couldn't clock in for work, right? Because we got an app where you clock in for work. And Jen was like, how are you? And she could tell I wasn't like the happiest in the world, right? Because I would usually be talking to her. She's like, what's wrong? I was like, Jen, I broke my phone. It's going to cost me all kinds of money to get it fixed again. She's like, oh, okay. So that same day, apparently, she was talking with one of the head people of ILNS about this policy that you're not supposed to, workers aren't supposed to do personal things during work time. Like if you go out on an outing, a worker isn't allowed to do their own, spend their own money on something or whatever, things like that, right? So Jen asked the head person, so could Isaac go and get, because we were going on Spring Garden and the Eastlink is there. So she said, could Isaac go and get a new phone at Eastlink? And the head person said, no, it's not allowed. He has to do it on his own time. This is the policy. She said, okay, I understand. So then we put the phone away. She said, so what time do you want to go to Eastlink? So, and we did go that day. We went that day. I didn't get my phone that day, but Jen, that was the funny thing about Jen. She put her workers first, right? Even if the policy was saying something, she was like, look, nobody has to know, you know? She was just living life. So those are just some things I want to share about Jen. She just loved life, and she was just a fun person. And yeah, she'll always be with us, and she'll definitely be missed. Thank you for listening.
Hi, good afternoon all. I think I lost the words. She had a very great influence in my personal life as well as my professional life. Actually, I moved to Canada exactly 1 year back, October 26th, and my first job was with ILNS. Though I had way back in India, I had a quite experience in disability sector. The job description that offered, that I got in ILNS was something new to me because my previous experience was dealing with mainly with the children with autism and intellectual disability. But when I joined ILNS, Jen was the first person that I had to deal. I think she made that job more attractive for me. I don't think if it was something else, I would have not remained in the same job. Because it was something new, something enjoying, something exciting. That way she made me enjoy the whole job. Other thing, my personal life, because I am a father of a special needs child, 7-year-old child with a cerebral palsy, severe disability, intellectual disability. The way I shaped myself as a parent of a special needs child, I think Jen, of course, and the larger ILNS family and the ILNS, it has played a vital role. Because I used to work mainly the overnight. And I may be the one person who really enjoyed the way Jen slept. And though I worked overnight, she will have always, most of the time, she will wait for me with some questions. Okay, Hazrat Muhammad, how was the last week? Where did you take your son? How was the day? How is your studies and going on? Even if she slept, by the time I clock in by 10 o'clock, the moment she wake something around 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock, she will keep some question for me. And other thing that, okay, one day I'm getting an email from Jen's. I don't remember Jen's email. One day I'm getting an email from Jen asking, Hazrat, how Democratic Party will be different from some other party? Okay, I was so excited. Okay, because the other day we had a discussion in the evening, and we had some discussion about her political experience that she's bringing. As I was not available in the daytime, she's sending an email asking, okay, Hazrat Muhammad, how the multi-party system should work. You have something in India, something. And I think my experience with Jen, I think whatever her stand was, whether she's ecologist, environmentalist, or inclusionist, she was more clear and strong in her argument. So, some small example. For example, her concern about the environment, she was so specific. Even she will count the number of the wipes or tissue paper that we'll be using for her. Frankly, I was not concerned. I was not serious about that. One day she was asking, I used some tissues for her. She was asking, how many tissue Muhammad used? Sorry, Jen. It took a 2-3 minutes or a 5 minutes to understand what is her question, because I never imagined. I used to guess what she's going to ask, but I was not in a position to guess that question. How many tissue Muhammad used? My God, that's a great learning for me. And somebody here, they were selling that Jen wanted to be a physiotherapist, but she was not able. She was a physiotherapist for me. Because I used to share my child's development and what we do in therapist and everything. She questioned me, Hazrat Muhammad, where do you go for send your child to physiotherapy? I think here Vicky also might share the same thought. It's not just therapists, they can make him work, make him independent. You have to do. Let him do in his own class settings or at your home. Frankly telling, because I moved to Canada just for my son, living everything, a good career and everything. But the way I engage with Jen, that really made me or molded me. I would say I can be a successful special need parent. I would have never achieved that stage or at least emotional courage to say that if I had not worked with Jen. And Jen was always a learner, I think a lot of people are telling. To a level that I had an opportunity, I won't say that it's an opportunity. In the last couple of months, whenever Jen got admitted, then I think 3-4 times she had admitted in the hospital. All these times I spent a couple of nights in Jen's hospital. Even the day before she left us, I was there in the hospital. She was so specific. The morning I was about to leave Jen around 8 o'clock in the morning, she was facing some breathing issues. And the nurses and the hospital staff, they were trying with some different instruments. Jen was so specific. She was asking the nurse, I think Farzan was there. She was so specific and she was asking, why this instrument is not working? Why the other instrument was so. I ran to the nurse and I started asking, because I was not that serious. But Jen, she wanted an answer. She was a learner. She wanted an answer. It's not just because that is something related to her. She wanted an answer. Why that equipment is not working for me? Why you use different equipments in different time? The nurse was not that serious. But until its last breath, she wanted to learn. She wanted to share. She wanted to handle everything. And even I never felt working in illness as a job. Jen played a vital role in that. I live in downtown. When I see a lot of pictures, Jen spending in downtown, park and pools, I ask Jen, okay, Jen, why can't you call me when you come to your downtown? Next door, after 2-3 days, I'm getting a call from I think Ray or my colleagues. Okay, Jen is coming to downtown. Can you come for? Okay, we met because I felt that working out of the office hours, Jen made me so comfortable. Last thing, I was fortunate to provoke her to think about how the people with disabilities are treated outside Canada. Because I used to compare the way, what kind of facilities I got from India, or what is something different I feel in Canada. So that made, I think, at least it played some kind of a role, trying, or some kind of an attempt. Jen tried to start a book, something, or a research kind of a thing about disability-related policies in various countries. I think that was one last project Jen was working on. Before that, especially the developing countries, I think we are still struggling to push the people with disability in a nursing home kind of a setup, because it is too early, in too early stage. We don't have even the nursing home kind of a model in the disability domain in developing countries or in the countries like India. So what I learned from Jen and the ILS is that, okay, we'll be able to save a decade, not just decade, okay, century, okay, generation, if you are able to replicate the ILS model that Jen always wanted to see. That made, I think, we had a lot of back and forth discussion, and she had agreed to translate her latest book on independent living to a South Indian language without any remuneration. She was so specific. Even when sometimes I forgot about something. She was asking about how is the process and everything. Fortunately, I think, just 1 week before Jan left us, we were able to get a lot of volunteers, had some kind of a discussion with the volunteer organization there in India. They also agreed. They agreed to even fund the whole translation process. Actually, still I do have the first chapter of her book translated, but Jen is not more. I think she was not Jen, she was something more than Jen, that each one of us share in some way or another way. Beyond my professional experience, even I would say that even I go back home, or I leave this organization, or I move into another field. As a parent of a special needs and critical illness, I will take these all moments to close to my heart. Because even if I go out, I am meeting my son. Because last time I remember in the same hall, I brought my son to meet Jen to take some photos of her book release. And by the way, once I visited Islands also along with my son. She was so happy and she was trying to play with him. That's all. Thank you all for sharing this thoughts and everything. She'll be missed. I think she won't be missed. She'll be always with us. We'll take, I think, across my life as a disability support worker, or especially as a father of a special need child, I'll always take these learnings until my last breath. Thank you all.
Hello. Very short. My name's Abby. I'll be quick. I was a roommate, employee, and friend of Jen's. I shared many big challenges and celebrations with Jen, running for council, writing and publishing 2 books, advocating for community housing, a lot of them you've heard. But it is the small moments I seem to remember most and hold close. Sharing a homemade Ethiopian meal, bites of coffee ice cream, cramped muscles from carrying home cases of orange juice and cookies, updating each other on our lives while folding laundry, researching microchip reading automated feeders to accommodate Jasmine's eating habits, Tiki Cat, which was Tula's favorite food and of course the most expensive, the bane of our existence, our last day with Tula, laughing endlessly at the motorized cat Jen had been gifted by a moving neighbor, debates over the ethics of outdoor cats, debates over government policy and bureaucracy, debates over the best place to store bread, debates over whether or not we needed to have gotten more eggs at the farmer's market. We usually didn't need to have gotten them. There were a lot of debates. Covering and uncovering arms, winter and summer skirt changeover, stealing some of my favorite skirts, with consent, of course, being ridiculed for my poor color matching. Ray, you weren't the only one. Making requests for obscure books at the public library, sips of water from a silicone straw, the quiet yet comforting call of Abby from the next room. It's no secret that Jen was an incredible human being. The impact she's had on my life is immeasurable. She taught me true patience and trust, not just with the patient that was required from me, but from her as well. It took me a long time to learn how to drive her wheelchair. how to really, actually, truly listen, how to choose compassion and curiosity over fear, how to laugh at the hard things and make fun of ourselves from time to time. She made me feel safe and respected, but she also challenged me and shared with me exciting perspectives. I craved to know what she was going to say next, even when speaking became a tiresome task. Sometimes I felt badly for asking so many questions and pleading for her thoughts, but I selfishly like to think that she was glad to spend her time and energy on my curiosity. To me, her words were worth all the time in the world, and I will carry them with me forever.
Hi, everyone. I guess I'm last, so I'll go quick. My name is Brittany Rowan, and I worked with Jen for 2 years, 2010 to 2012. And so this was peak our HRM Alliance. See, it's still hard to say. I was there. We coined that, and sometimes we regretted it because it's too hard to say. Anyway, every day with Jen was an adventure, and that's what I loved about working with her. So I worked 4 days a week, 10 hours a day, had Fridays off. No Fashion Fridays back then. But yeah, I mean, we would get in the van and we'd go to work, but sometimes there'd be other things. We'd have to take Abby to the vet and get scolded on her weight. Or we would go to conductive education. I think that's March of Dimes, that's what it was called. Or we'd go to Sackville Rivers for a meeting with different members of the RHRM Alliance, or we'd pick up Tom for a date. I would just sit in the front of the van and they'd go off and hold hands. Anyway, but yeah, I mean, I guess that was what it was with Jen. It was just every day full of laughs, like everyone had said, a lot of teasing, but also we worked together really well. She used to, and when I found out she worked at the EAC, I was a burgeoning environmental scientist fresh out of my undergrad, and this was a really exciting opportunity for me, especially when she was putting this RHRM Alliance together in the green belting, not green belt. It was very specific that it was called green belting. And yeah, I mean, it was just really great to work with her. And she used to refer to me as her sober second thought because, as you said, she was sometimes stubborn and had very strong opinions. We decided that we couldn't just put that on my resume, so we went with campaign and personal assistant. So that was really nice. And our biggest adventure yet was, I forget exactly what, I think it was March. She was supposed to go to a Greenbelt conference, and her roommate at the time couldn't go at the last minute. And, she asked me, do you want to go with me? You don't have to, no pressure. I know it's a lot to ask to fly to Toronto with me, kind of 3 days before. But, I decided, hey, let's go for it. So we went to this conference, went first time in Toronto, Jen brought me. And it was just, it taught me, working with Jen taught me I could really accomplish anything. And that has stuck with me, and yeah, thanks.
Hi, I'm Cher. I'm the reason that the wheelchair is terrible. You're all welcome. None of you can drive it. So I know we've been going on. I was like, should I come up and say something? And then I thought Jen would be like, what, you guys are done? You guys don't have anything else nice to say about me? Everyone hasn't said something yet. So I thought, okay, I'll do that. And I can't promise I'll say anything nice. I adored Jen when I first met her and her very fantastic, quirky, curated entourage at work. Our days just became so much fun. And we really look forward to her coming and all these adventures. I know you guys have heard how bright she is and how fiercely competitive she was. And we quickly became friends, which is not okay, but both rule makers, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so another thing that was not okay, so if my professional college is here, just don't listen, please. We would bet, and you should not take money from clients, but anyway, it doesn't matter. Again, la, la, la. So Jen being very smart and loving to be right, and me loving to be right, we would just get in these discussions about things. And I think one of my favorite ones was, when I look back, was so absurd because it was about smallmouth bass in Alberta. Which of course we were both experts. And her being from Alberta and me having fished was pretty much what it started. Anyway, we went back and forth in this debate about whether there were actual smallmouth bass in Alberta. Anyway, long story short, I was right. And And she asked one of her attendants to please, and you know when Jen would say something you wouldn't get it, and she'd get the eye roll, and she'd, and you know, one of the favorite things she'd say was to me, "You make me not funny." Anyway, so I was not understanding what she was saying, so finally she had to get one of her very awesome attendants to translate for me. And what she was trying to get me to do was to take the toonie that was taped under the crotch of her skirt so that the wind wouldn't blow it, and to pay me my debt. And so I kept that toonie in the window so she would be sure to see it every time she came in. And I left that job this year, and I was like, nope, I'm still leaving it. Anyway, but just a testament to what fun she had. And there's so many stories I can't tell. And you guys all know why. And one is about a phallic-shaped cake. So if anyone wants to talk about cake out there, I can do that. But it's just not appropriate to bring up. Anyway, I just wanted to thank everyone that she brought me to, and to say thank you to you all. That's all.
Thank you, everyone. This has been an amazing afternoon, to say the least. And I think maybe just picking up on what Isaac said, what we really learned from this is that Jen will always be with us. There is no question about that. Celebration. This is a celebration of life, so there should be a celebration to end it. One of the reasons that Jen's family chose today for this event is that November 1st would have been Jen's 46th birthday. She was born very early on the morning of November 1st, and Jen apparently would often claim that her mother called her the witch that Halloween left behind. We may want to fact check that particular claim. At any rate, there will be coffee and birthday cupcakes outside. So this might be an excellent time, Tom has suggested, for everyone to sing happy birthday to Jen a little early. I'd volunteer to lead in the singing, but I wasn't allowed to more than mouth the words even in our elementary school choir. So I'm going to look forward to some of those people who've offered to sing in other guises today to lead us in happy birthday. So please, you, I believe.
Birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Jen. Happy birthday to you.
Coffee and cupcakes await.